Hi everyone, my name is Junon. I have a health science background and I'm the author of the book Truth and Empathy: How to Find Your Soulmate. I'm very excited about the fact that the book is published and I'm going to put a link below. It's available on Amazon. And the book is designed to help people understand themselves so they have a reference point so that then they are able to identify the most compatible romantic partner. Now, it is for people who are willing to be honest with themselves. So it's not a book that has a lot of fluff. So it's very much to the point. It's very compact. So there are no fillers. And I would truly recommend that people read every line. So there's no good, oh, I'm going to go over a couple of pages or paragraphs and I get the general idea. So I would really recommend to sit down and really go through every line of this book to make it easier for people to understand, because a number of these ideas and concepts in the book are uncommon. So you probably won't see these ideas in other books. You might have, other might go over some aspects, but it's a book that, to be honest, is unique that way. So it draws from different uh, areas. So in other words, we talk about spirituality, obviously. We talk about romance, personality types, dentistry. We talk about breathing, anatomy, physiology. So it is that's why it's a complex book, and I'm doing these videos so that people can better understand where I'm coming from. Now, what I'm going to do is that I have some ideas listed here because I want to make sure that I cover all these points. The first thing people will see on the cover is that it says Truth and Empathy: How to Find Your Soulmate. And the subtitle is Discover How Subtle Energy Determines Your Personality Type and Most Compatible Mate. So, what do we mean by that? I am an energy empath, and I've met a number of empaths throughout my life, and it's kind of difficult to explain to someone who's not as sensitive in terms of having this type of nervous system. But an energy empath is able to feel subtle energy that emanates from people, places, even ideas. So growing up, I was not interacting with people who were like me. And I could not understand why I felt good with certain people, certain situations, whereas when let's say I was put in a different context, I didn't feel good. And it was not related to how a person looked or anything had to do with the five senses, how what the person said, or how they were dressed, or how even in terms of smells, there was something beyond that. And because of the fact that I had no one to talk about these things, I thought, okay, maybe it's only in my head. But as I grew up, and especially when I started exploring energy and so forth, I came across more and more people who are energy empaths, and they were able to also relate these same experiences. So subtle energy is everywhere. Like in the universe is made of different vibrations. And so there is a vibration to every person, every object, even an idea. And when we look at, let's say, if you look at the work by David R. Hawkins, he talks about levels of consciousness. And depending on the level of consciousness of an object or a person, they will vibrate at different levels. So if you look at, let's say, a rock is less conscious or has a lower level of awareness than, let's say, a plant. A plant has a lower level of awareness than an animal, and human beings have a high level of awareness than an animal. And even within, in terms of the human species, you'll see people at different levels of awareness. So let's say if you look at the difference between, let's say, someone like Nelson Mandela and Saddam Hussein, we intuitively know that they're not at the same level of awareness, and it shows in their actions long term, their ideas, the way they present themselves. So it's not by accident. People say, oh, I don't know what happened to my relationship. people are best matched with someone at the same level of awareness, or as close as possible. And the challenge in relationships, it's not so much that people are similar, it's because they are different. And the goal of this book, when I say that you can find someone who's like you, that's why I say like you, personality types and so forth, is that you are basically trying to find a person who has the same type of vibration as yourself, as close as possible. Everyone is unique, so the problem is not so much to find someone who's different, it's to find someone who is similar to you. So no one in the whole history of the universe is going to be exactly like you or I or anybody else. So most people, when they are trying to find a mate, they're trying to find someone who can understand them, someone who can see them from who they are, and with whom they can totally be themselves. And the more different someone is from you, you probably have to edit yourself. You cannot speak, your mind. You cannot be totally who you are, because you realize that you might say something that might be offensive to the other person. They might not understand you. So there are a lot more room for having conflict. And if you look at most relationships, when, let's say, whether it's a breakup, if let's say you were a boyfriend and girlfriend, or a marriage, you're getting divorced, the probably the what is mostly cited is irreconcilable differences. Probably in 95% of cases, there are 5% who find that it's other factors that make it impossible for the relationship to work. But most of the time, that's what it is: the fact that people have irreconcilable differences. And so I want to minimize the risk of people ending up in that situation by saying, okay, you need to know yourself so that you know who's a good match for you. Now, if I when and that's why I would recommend people to read the book Power versus Force by David R. Hawkins, because he really talks about those different levels of awareness. And when it say uh, someone is at a particular level of awareness, is that it's going to manifest themselves in different areas of their lives in different ways. So the person will be at a particular level of emotional and spiritual evolution, but also it will play themselves in terms of their personality type. So personality types are not so much about, uh, let's say, likes or dislikes. It's based on what I've seen in my work, is that you really looking at different vibration levels. And that's why people say, oh, two people who are mature of any type can make it work. I disagree with that, because you're looking at different perspectives on life, and it's hardwired. And this vibration is not linked to who raised you. So you cannot, let's say, if you look at it's a family, you have a man or woman, they have a child. You cannot predict the level of words of that child based on their parents. So only, and that David Hawkins talks about, only about 10% of who we are in terms of our vibrational level of awareness is linked to our parents. So if you look at an average family, you'll see that, let's say if they have 2 or 3 kids or more, each child is probably different. There are 16 types of like brain types in terms of the truth and empathy questionnaire, which is similar to the Myers-Briggs. Probably most people know that the MBTI type and types. So in other words, who we are is not is like our environment is not what makes someone have a particular perspective on life. That's why you can see someone, let's say, who has a particular level of work or brain type, and whether they are young, older, if they are from a different religion or culture, ethnicity, they show the same characteristics. And when a person is a particular personality type or really level of awareness, is that regardless, like I mean, they regardless of they're men or women, also that doesn't make much of it. The sexual orientation doesn't have an impact, but also you will see that they have to have 90% of those traits. So there's still some leeway. So you're not going to see someone who's a clone of each other, but they have to at least fit 90% of these characteristics. So there is something, and I think there's people say, well, I'm like 90% of these traits are like me, but there's this 10% that doesn't fit. Well, yes, if you're at least 90% of those, you can, when you read that personality type, it means that you are that type. Although there could be some small things that are not exactly like you, some traits. So I think that's important to understand about this first chapter in terms of the introduction and also the idea behind the title. When it comes to the chapter number one, the title is breathing, and what is interesting is that when a person has a particular level of awareness, they have a particular vibration. This translates to particular brain type. So they will have a particular brainwave dominance, whether it's going to be beta or alpha or theta. Most people have a beta brainwave dominance. That's why if you look at most textbooks, that's what they will say. Yeah, because about 85% of the world population have a beta brainwave dominance. But what they actually don't say is that how your beta brain dominance actually will determine your resting breathing rate to a 1-to-1 ratio. So if let's say someone breathes 14 times a minute, they will have, in terms of their brainwave dominance, 14 cycles per second, and that's how you can actually determine who they are. If your brainwave, where you actually feel like your peak, and that's what it's interesting is that people say, "Well, I want to slow down as much as possible my brain." No, it's like each person function at its best when it matches with their brainwave dominance. And when they breathe, let's say 14 times a minute, they will have certain characters. They will be able to see the world or view the world through a particular lens. And each person, at least if you look at the work by David R. Hawkins, has chosen their levels of awareness. That's why it's difficult to change a person, because that's where they want to be. It's kind of because I worked as an energy healer, so it's part of my practice, something I do as well with writing, is that people are comfortable being at their level of awareness, because each level of awareness there are pros and cons, there are benefits and also responsibilities. So if someone's at a certain level of awareness, it's difficult to change their minds. So that's why in the book I'm not saying to a person to change their personality type. We want them to be the best version of who they are. And when it comes to health, there's something as rarely discussed, is that if let's say a person has a beta brainwave dominance, and I put them in a situation that is stressful, and the stress that people experience in modern life is not sort of something that is short and intense. Is this of low to moderate chronic stress? And most people, because of that, their brainwaves are more incoherent and also faster, and that determines their breathing rate. So what happens is that the person starts hyperventilating, and that's when we see all these chronic illnesses that people are suffering from. And it's something that is rarely discussed. So you see people with anxiety, depression, high blood pressure, insomnia. And when a person breathes faster, they tend to breathe through the mouth instead of through the nose, because it takes too long, because the nose is a smaller opening, there's more resistance, and that's why we see a lot of these issues. And it's kind of so that, let's say, if you look at a book by Patrick McEwen, who looked at this phenomenon of people mouth breathing. Even there's this book, excellent book by James Nestor. Actually, both books, Patrick McEwen's book, James Nestor, Breath, that came out just recently as well, talks about the importance of nose breathing. And again, those numbers come up that about 85% of people mouth breathe because 85% of people have a beta brainwave dominance. Now, when it comes to the 15%, these are people who naturally have slower brain waves. So even if they are stressed long term, you will see that they still breathe through the nose. And what happens is that when the person breathes through the mouth versus breathing through the nose is that their tongue is not in the right position and the lower part of their face is not well developed, and you can see people having crooked teeth. So interesting enough, I know that sounds kind of something people probably have never heard of, is that the person's level of awareness will determine their vibration, it will determine their brain type, and will determine their facial uh, development. So in other words, you'll see that the person will have either straight teeth with a well-developed jaw, or more likely to have crooked teeth and an underdeveloped jaw. And this, I know, sounds incredible, but I've seen it time and time again. And when people say it's the environment, the chronic stress, and also processed food as well is a factor. People not getting proper exercise, and that is all true. But have to ask yourself the question: why 15% of the population still has straight teeth and a wide jaw? So it's not everyone that falls into that category. And these are people with slower brain waves, and also they emit a different type of energy. Now, this sort of gives you at least some understanding as to what this first chapter is all about. So it goes into more detail as to the whole mechanics of it. But I think that at least you have maybe some background as to where these ideas came from. And I will see you soon on the next video, which will explore chapter number 2 of the book. Thank you for watching, and please click like if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe to our channel. Take care.